so much for joining Nick and I. You guys, this is Thralls. Did I say it right?
You did.
Rachel is, we actually connected over fitness, but she is a sommelier and she is 90 to 95% plant-based. So we brought her on to cook with us tonight and to teach us a little bit about pairing wine with plants, because so many people associate or know automatically what to pair with fish or chicken or red meat, but you never hear people talking about how to pair wine with plants. So Rachel is going to help us learn just how to do that. So thanks for joining.
Hey, Rachel.
Yeah. Hi, how are you guys?
Good, thank you.
So I'm super excited to be here today and chat with you guys about this. And we have 2 wines that we're going to try with an amazing dish. We're not going to give all the secrets away. That's the first one. It's just Sancerre. And the second one is a single vineyard Chardonnay from Russian River Valley here in Sonoma County. Yeah, where I live. And so we're doing a mushroom dish, and I'll go into later why I did not pick Pinot Noir, even though I love mushrooms and Pinot Noir together, but there's a reason why I did not do that. And so, yeah, just a little bit about my background. My father was a wine collector. My mom and my grandmother were like huge cooks in the kitchen, so I learned a lot from them. But I grew up on like the standard American diet, and I'm all about like flipping the script and doing eating more plant-based with family favorites. My whole family's from the South, even though I grew up in California. And I was actually born in Nashville. So kind of, you know.
Did you know I moved here from Nashville?
I did know that, yeah. I went to Vanderbilt for my undergrad.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And so after I moved back. So yeah, as Kaylee said, we know each other from the fitness world. But we both went to IIN. I actually just recently finished my plant-based cert through Cornell. And I eat mostly plant-based. And I'm here to tell you, you do not need steak, chicken, and fish to enjoy a glass of wine. So we're going to talk about that today. And the main thing I want to kind of go over just in general about wine pairings is that wine pairings, first of all, the wine is supposed to make the food taste better, and the food is supposed to make the wine taste better. So they complement each other. So anytime that you have something that's kind of going against that, one of them is going to dominate over the other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about acidity in wines as well. So do you guys have a glass yet? Have you poured any?
Which one should we pour?
So pour the Sancerre first.
This one.
Yeah. So I have that in my glass.
I don't really drink wine. I'm more of a beer or whiskey guy, but I'm always open to a good glass. But I'm just the most uneducated human being on wine. So I'm fascinated. My mum did say she cannot wait for this video because she said, what can I pair my wine with now if you're bringing out a plant-based cookbook? So
yeah,
I feel like we have to start with a little
cheers.
Internet cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
to do the old swiggle.
I am going to talk about the 2 wines that we're tasting, but before we do that, I'm going to kind of talk about that whole idea of, you know, needing that juicy steak with the Cabernet Sauvignon. You do not need that. And it all comes down to acidity in the wine, which I'm also going to talk about. So if I could give people 3 tips for wine pairing, they would be in order, not necessarily in order, but the wine should always be more acidic than the food. So both the wines today have a lot of acid. Somms are known for loving acid because they work really well with food. And that's what we do. We work in restaurants, we do food and wine pairing. The wine should always be sweeter than the food.
Okay.
And so that is why red wine and chocolate do not pair.
Damn it, I'm doing it wrong.
A lot of people do that, and I'm like, you can have a port from Portugal that's sweeter with dark chocolate, that'll work. But the other really cool thing about that is it's also why like a good German Riesling that's sweeter works really well with a veggie tofu coconut curry. It's delicious.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely ordering one for next week.
Immediately.
And so those are the first 2. And the third tip I always tell people for food and wine pairing is to drink what you like. And so for Nick, if you like beer, have the beer. You know, one of the favorite things I love, and I'll kind of share some of my favorite plant-based and wine pairings like towards the end, but I love veggie sushi with rosé sparkling wine from California or champagne or from wherever. But people like sake and people like beer with that. And so there's also tricky vegetables, which we'll talk about, that Nick, you can just stick with your beer for that. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good to know. We really like sushi, and we have actually one of our Kaylee versus Nick recipes in the cookbook is my sushi roll versus his sushi roll. So
Nice.
we're gonna have to try that with I love a sparkling rosé, so I'm gonna give that a shot.
Perfect. That would be like an excellent pairing.
That's an amazing summer dish too. It's perfect time of year for it.
Yeah. So really quick before I talk about the wines and we can start cooking and all that, I brought up this idea of acidity. So acidity is extremely important in wine, and all it is the all the different compounds in the grapes. So tartaric acid, malt, all that stuff. And so basically, when the fruit is hanging on a vine, the earlier that it's picked, the more acid it has. Because as wine grapes stay on a vine, they develop more sugar, and what we call residual sugar. And so then when you get these bigger wines that are big and juicy, they're losing that acidity because they have more residual sugar in them. Okay. And so that is acidity and then tannin, which we'll talk about too, are like two of the main components of pairing. However, acidity is the most important. And it goes back to that pairing of the wine is going to bring out the best in the food, and the food's going to bring out the best in the wine. So that's like my number one thing in wines. And so how I describe acidity is kind of that crispness in a wine, or like that tartness. And when you taste it, so take a sip of your wine.
I think get the crispness on this one.
And you kind of slurp it. If you stick your tongue out, can you feel the wine? That's acid.
Okay.
Right? And so that is something that is going to do very well with food and enhance it. Now, there's a reason why I picked these two as we start cooking. They're different. So the dish, they're gonna go well with the dish. They're gonna taste different. The dish will taste different with each of these. So I'm interested.
I can't wait. I love this. It's like a science experiment.
Yeah, it is. It's so fun. So the other thing is there are a couple of what we call like picky impossible veggies.
Okay.
When it comes to wine. And it's basically the chemical compound in asparagus, Brussels sprouts, and artichokes, which I love all three of them. And so besides just pairing with the beer, as you could do, there's also, so with asparagus, and keep in mind that all veggies they taste different, whether they're raw or they're roasted. So this brings me actually to asparagus. So the Sancerre that we're drinking would be great with asparagus. The other really great wine with these types of like trouble veggies, I like to call them, is Gruner Veltliner. And so it's a white, have you guys ever had Gruner?
I have not.
So it is a white grape from Austria. And I don't know where he is. He's somewhere in here, but I have an English cream golden retriever. He's white and his name is Gruner.
Oh, cute. So that's good to know. We have to remember that for asparagus, Brussels sprouts, and artichokes.
Yep. The other thing that I'm just going to throw out there, which I tell everybody, champagne and sparkling wine pair with everything.
Oh, good to know.
So when in doubt, and that's just, it's the acid in it. Now there's different types of champagne and sweetness levels, but for the most part, like you could have the other Blanc de Blanc that you have, like you could have that with this dish as well. So it's it's awesome. So do you want me to start telling you about the wines, or do you want to cook, or what do you?
Let's get it sauteing a little bit, and then we'll chit chat some more.
We're going straight for the garlic, the butter. We kind of both use the same one, don't we?
Yeah.
We both use Earth Balance. It's quite
good.
good.
I have Earth Balance, and then I also have, I'm using this today, the Miyokos.
Oh yeah, their stuff's so great. Love it. Their cheeses and their cream cheese is so nice.
So I'm gonna add
the mushroom kale dish from the cookbook. We're not gonna give away the whole recipe. You'll see everything that's in it, but you just won't have the measurements. But this was a fan favorite, right?
Oh, everyone loved this one.
And when you sent this to me last week when I was trying with the wines, I was like, this is so good.
It's addictive though, isn't it? You could have the whole thing.
Like
It's
you
really
really
good.
should
I'll
just
switch of you.
you really should just double it every time you make it. That's what I say. 'Cause
I know, it's like a little appetizer portion.
the first time we nailed this recipe, it was like on the stove. We were cooking some other things. I think you were FaceTiming with your mom, and we just kept coming back to the pan. And next thing we knew, like the entire pan was eaten. We never even made it onto a plate. We had to remake it to take a picture.
Family 5 size of mushrooms, the whole thing was gone.
Down.
Yeah. I mean, it's like literally all my favorite ingredients.
Yeah.
It's good. Okay.
And it's super simple, super quick.
Also, you guys, this is my favorite new pan, one pan. And it's got like a steamer basket and a lid, and it's got a handle for the little
nice.
spatula that it comes with. It's safe, non-stick. Like, it's my favorite. It comes in gray and some other colors.
She sells them apparently.
I don't sell them. The company doesn't pay me. I don't have a coupon code for you guys, but it's my
I
favorite
should
pan.
bloody pay you now after saying that review. Jesus.
I feel like I might need a bigger pan now.
To be fair, I was proud of my new pan. I can't remember what I got, but yeah.
So I know we haven't tried the wine with the food yet, but do you guys like the Sancerre?
I really like it.
I really like it too. It's very, I mean, I don't want to be a child when I say this, but it's like a nice apple juice.
Yeah. There's not as much sugar as an apple juice.
It's really good. I really like it.
Red,
so
'cause
I'm
I
I feel like for me, because I'm not used to wine, like obviously beer, you have kind of a big-ish gulp. But I feel like with wine, you just meant to sip it a little bit.
I mean,
That's where I mean, even mine is it's pretty much gone now because I don't know. I've not really drunk wine, so.
I only poured a little bit.
So this is what I'm doing. I have 2 glasses because I have this the Sancerre and then the Chardonnay. So then you guys can do that so you guys can compare the wines.
Okay, I'm getting a second glasses.
All right, so my butter and garlic are sauteing.
Have this.
Well, you don't drink wine, so you don't have wine glasses.
They just look nice.
Maybe we're going to change this wine now.
Everyone should have a wine glass in there.
Okay.
I normally go for like I don't really like sweet wine, so I'm liking this information about acidity. And I think I'll like both of these wines because usually the thing that gets me on Chardonnay is when it's too flowery, like sweet and floral and.
So all that is all that is oak. So that's aged in a barrel. So you can have an unoaked Chardonnay, which pairs really nicely with a lot of veggies too. This, and I'll kind of talk about the wines now, but this.
It's a lot darker.
Yeah. So what that means is it's aged in a barrel. So Sancerre is Sauvignon Blanc. So it's from the Loire Valley in the middle of France. And then the Chardonnay is from Sonoma Coast, and I'll talk about that too. But that is aged in a barrel. So it's going to be interesting to see what you guys think about the pairing because they both work. But then that goes back to like what I was saying is like drink what you like, you know?
They're so different.
They're so different.
Just jumping in quickly, sorry girls. It's been sauteing for about two minutes.
Okay.
Mushrooms are going in.
Add the mushrooms in?
Mushrooms
All
are
right, I'm adding the mushrooms.
Garlic's ready to go. Just a little bit of seasoning, a bit of salt and pepper to get it out.
I got that. Got my little pepper mill. Right. It already smells good in here.
Yeah, I love the smell of garlic cooking.
Yeah.
This tastes a little bit like at the end, like cooked butter.
So that's the oak
Okay.
from the aging process. And so this wine also still, even though it tastes different, it still has a lot of acidity in it as well. And you'll see how it tastes. I think you're going to like the wine better when you have it with the mushrooms.
What's so interesting is my first sip, And like right when I swallowed, I was like, "Ooh, I don't like it." And then after like a minute, I was like, "It's growing on me." And then on my second sip, I was like, "Ooh, I really like it."
Yeah. So wait till you try it with the mushrooms. It's good.
As a non-wine drinker, the first one was at the, how'd you say it?
So it's Sancerre. It's a Sauvignon Blanc.
Very sweet, kind of easy to drink.
Yep.
This one I can see, like this one will take me a little bit longer. Like I would have just a little sip, come back to it. This one, I think I just have the whole thing, just keep drinking.
It's like what we call a porch pounder.
That's a porch pounder right there. This would be my mom's favorite, an absolute porch pounder.
So tell your mom who's wondering about what she can cook, she can have this wine. And these are they're very different. I'll kind of talk about the differences, but the Sancerre is like $22, and then the Chardonnay is a single vineyard, and it's actually from 2 rows of vines in a single block in a vineyard. So it's $55. So it costs a lot more because it's literally fruit from like 2 rows in a vineyard.
Okay.
Whereas this one is it's probably from a blend of this region's vineyards from a couple different vineyards. I'm going to stir my mushrooms.
Okay.
I didn't put enough milk in, so I'm going to put a little bit more in to get that.
Don't put the cream, maybe just pour the milk.
I'm doing it slow so I don't burn my garlic.
Good call. Might have to add a little water since cream didn't have milk. Or olive oil or more butter.
And so also just kind of as like a little like teaching moment.
Yeah.
The vintage on the wine is the year. Of course, this is at 18. And so for this Sancerre, the producer is the Jean-Marc. Okay, so he's the producer. Sancerre is the region in Loire Valley in France. So that's kind of central France. And then at the very top, it says La Côte de Souris. And that is the specific region in Sancerre in the Loire Valley. So the French are very complicated when it comes to their wine labeling.
That's good to know. I'm learning a lot.
And so then the Bonovia Three Sisters Chardonnay is a vineyard, like I was saying, it was a couple rows from that block. And it's only 3 ridges, so it's about 3 miles in from the Sonoma coast up here. Oh, hello, puppy. So cute.
That's Benny.
So cute. And so it's called a region called Fort Ross Seaview. They are known for having high acid wines as well. So these wines probably taste different to you guys, but they both have high acid, which is why they're going to work with the dish.
The dish. I can't wait to try them with the food.
Rachel, how did you get into this? Have you do you remember the point where you were like, oh, I'm really fascinated by wine?
Yeah, so my father was a wine collector. He started collecting wine in the early 80s. I've always been into wine through him and tasted throughout my life. The cooking, my mom and my grandmother are great cooks, even though I like to tell them that I've surpassed them in their cooking skills. And I have always been into health and fitness, all the things. So I actually have my master's in education. And then when I had my kids, I stayed home and kind of was like, needed something else to do. And so I went back to school at the International Culinary Institute, which is in Campbell, California.
Oh, wow.
There's one in New York. There's one in Campbell, California, which is south of San Francisco. And I went to night school 3 or 4 days. I think it was 3 nights a week for 4 hours. My kids were little. And I went and studied with the Court of Masters and became a certified sommelier. And so at the time, I was still doing that school, working from home. And what I did is I did a lot of food and wine pairing recipes, kind of like what I've gotten back into now. For like mom websites, I wrote for wine.com, I wrote for Bevmo, which you guys have probably heard about.
Yeah.
And so then at the time I was going through a divorce. And so I moved up here to Sonoma, and I was the national director of wine education for Rodney Strong Vineyards for a couple years.
Wow. Amazing.
Then I met my husband, who's in the wine industry. My husband. So we've been married almost 3 years. We make wine, which we haven't made in a few vintages. He's the general manager at Bonovia. And So yeah, that's kind of like the very abridged version.
What kind of wine do you make? So I have made wine one time. So you know who my sister is, and
Yeah.
she used to have a small vineyard at her old house. So one year, my dad, the kids, her and I, my brother, we picked all the grapes, stomped them old fashioned, like in a big tub with our feet. My brother like disinfected everybody's feet first. We stomped all the grapes, and then he is a professional chef. So my brother made wine. I don't remember. I think they were Pinot Noir grapes, actually.
Yeah. So
one bottle. So we basically all had a taste.
nice. So Pinot Noir is the hardest wine to make.
Yeah, good to know.
So if you can make that, you can make anything.
Good to know. What do you guys make?
So we haven't made a couple vintages just due to like kid ages and school and work and all that kind of stuff. But we made mostly Pinot Noir, and our brand is just Thralls, which is our last name. And we also made one vintage of Chardonnay from a place out on the coast, kind of near where this is. And really, like Chardonnay and Pinot Noir are from Burgundy in France, and so that's kind of like, we love Champagne, which is just north of that, and Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from Burgundy. And so I will say though that Sonoma County, the diversity here makes just as good as it does in France. And so that's kind of, it's fun. We want to get back to it. I would love to do some more obscure varieties like the Gruner I was talking to you about, like a Vermentino, do some more rosés. I love rosé of Pinot Noir, which would actually go really well with this dish as well.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
So we've talked a lot about wine. This is super helpful, and I can't wait to taste these and hear more about why you paired each one with the dish. But I'm also curious, so I know you're not 100% plant-based, but what made you decide to go plant-based? Like, how long have you been plant-based?
So I'm trying to think of what year it was. I think it was, what year is it now? 17. So it was the end of 2016. And I started like kind of reading up on it, and I had a lot of gut issues, which I know you know a lot about.
Yeah.
And I watched some of the original documentaries, and I kind of went, I was 100% for probably a year and a half. And then I like toyed with like adding fish back in and eggs back in and some meat back in, and kind of just, it really had to do a lot with like the traveling I was doing for the wine industry. And doing lunches and dinners and like, you know, pairings, and I'm like, well, I'm vegan, you know, and and it's like this thing. And now since then it's gotten so much better.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of like restaurants that are big wine accounts that pair wine with their food. And so really for me, it was a health thing and an ethical thing. My kids eat, they know, I call them like plant rich. They still will eat meat, but Tyler, my 11-year-old, I'm like holding out. I'm like, he's like, I could eat like this.
See, my youngest is the same way. My 12-year-old Jake, he loves like beans and rice and all, like he's not really a picky eater. So he actually doesn't even eat a lot of meat. Remember you got him that burger? And you like,
I loved it.
He didn't love it till like 12 hours later though. Like he could take it or leave it, you know?
Right.
But my oldest is super picky. So I always just say like, that's why I like the word plant-based. I don't say vegan or whatever.
Right.
There's some flexibility in there to make it what works for you. So my kids still eat meat, even though I don't, but I want it to be their choice. I never want to force it on them, but they know they always have to have a plant on their plate. Like that's
exactly. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think that's kind of like setting that example for them at an early age and just talking about why, you know, it's just like, it's like the fitness. Like, I mean, my daughter just finished the full like 21-day fix real time with me. Like, you know, and so it's like, it's showing that example and them knowing that this is kind of how you're supposed to eat. And actually, I just read, you know, Dr. B's book that I found out through you. I finished Fiber Fueled.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was talking to my daughter about like the plant diversity and the importance of plant-based and the importance of having that variety. So she's been like, every week that I have them, she's been making a list of like all the different plant-based foods that she's been eating, which I'll call that a win.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So
That's so cool. All right. Should we taste our food with our wines?
yeah. So let me get, so did you add?
I did. We just tossed our kale in. So
So you guys, so that's, so you just toss it and you don't wilt it down. It just kind of wilts as you do it, right?
Yeah, I just tossed it in at the end. Ours has been wilting for a couple minutes.
We like ours a little bit, well, you're the same, aren't you? A little bit crunchy. Let me sort the dogs out. But again, it depends on what you want. If you want it nice and soft, obviously, wilt it a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, and so yeah, same as the wine, like have it how you like. We tell everybody we had to put measurements in the cookbook so people could get close to what it's supposed to be. But when we cook, we don't really measure unless we're baking. We just kind of toss things in, taste as we go.
I don't either. And it's so difficult when I've been trying to be better about like giving people stuff, but it's so difficult for me because I'm like, I don't measure anything.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like a handful of this, a pinch of that. Taste it, see how you like it.
Right.
I'm just picking up dog pee, so
Good job.
that's why I'm off camera.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
So what happens when you have puppies? They pee all over.
Yeah, they do. Mine's almost 5.
It's like, mine's 10 weeks now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's a biter. He loves to chew your fingers.
So did you guys decide to get the puppies at the same time?
He copies me.
Well,
Let's be fair. We copied.
it was one of those things where I always had my heart set on a mini Australian Shepherd, actually. And
Yeah.
I thought, right, I'm going to get one. But I thought I'd get it maybe in the future because I have an old dog. She's 12. She's the most unsociable, undog-like dog you'll ever meet. So I thought, I'll get her a little brother at some point. And then you kind of got the puppy, didn't you? I was like, oh. And I saw my puppy now. I was like, oh, maybe. So just get it. I was like, all right, that was it.
That's kind of how we got ours. Like, oh, let's just get it.
That kind of happened.
Yeah, my son just really wanted a puppy. We had a couple different puppies picked out. Things didn't work out for whatever reason. And then Baxter became available literally like,
Right,
found
lads,
him.
come on.
Benny, you're being a troublemaker. Yeah, we found him online and we had him in our hands within 3 hours.
Nice. That's awesome. I'm gonna grab a knife.
Okay, I know, I'm having to cut mine up so I don't.
It smells amazing.
I love how flavorful this dish is, and it's super easy to make.
Yeah, that's what I love about plant-based cooking. Honestly, I feel like it's so easy. And
Yeah,
I
it
feel
is.
like I
It's
have
really
more flavor than I say this all the time, but more flavor than I've ever had before because I'm more creative and I use more ingredients.
Totally. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to
Okay.
have a bite.
Do you bite the food first or drink the wine
No,
first?
so here's what you're gonna do. You're
Okay.
gonna so let's start with the Sancerre. So
Okay.
take a sip of the wine.
That was yours. Yep.
This one. Hardly anything left. It's like apple juice.
There's more in the bottle.
Well, I want to, like, you girls do your thing, because I want to pretend that I actually know what I'm talking about.
So then
So you
take
take a
a sip of
sip.
wine and then take a bite and get, some of the garlic, get all the ingredients. Delicious. And now taste the wine again.
Same wine?
Totally changed the flavor of the wine.
Right, but so do you notice how this Sancerre brings out the parsley and the kale?
Oh yeah, you're right.
So and you'll see something different on the next one.
Okay.
It's
So
a
it makes
completely new way of eating for me, so.
What'd you say?
It's a completely new way of eating, because obviously, just drink your beer, have some food, drink your beer, you don't even think about it. So it's almost like, it's a pairing to the meal, isn't it?
Right.
Like a condiment.
Mm-hmm.
It does go really well.
Yeah, that was so nice.
I'm going to have another one.
Yeah. So to me, I I like what the Sancerre does because it brightens the dish a little bit. And then you'll see with so now let's do the Chardonnay.
I tasted a difference in the food with the Chardonnay, and I didn't notice
you just
with the Sancerre.
Okay, so I'm taking. Whoops.
Can't be a mushroom.
Oh yeah, totally different. You're right. I do like the wine better with food.
See? So to me,
That sounds better.
I think Nick called this dish like soft, like pillows or something.
Yeah.
And so what the Chardonnay does, it's like this like complementary where there's a richness to this dish that you don't notice with the Sancerre. But with the Chardonnay, it brings out that like richness of the mushrooms, and it works with both of them. And so that's why it's so cool, because you're like, you can really do whatever wine that you like best, but it makes it taste different.
Fascinating. The two wines tasted completely different, and they still taste completely different from each other, but also I've never paid that much attention maybe. But the food changed both wines, and the wine, especially the Chardonnay for me, changed how the food tasted.
Yeah. So which pairing do you like the best?
I like the Chardonnay the best, and Nick likes the other.
Yeah.
Sincere?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, Rachel, I finally understand why people, because I like the idea of, when you see it like, like a gentleman's kind of clubhouse, they have cigars and stuff.
Right.
Like just a thing. Well, I always see people drinking wine with their steak, like we were talking about how to pair it. I've liked the idea of that, but it's always just have a whiskey or have a beer. It's never been like have a wine. Now I understand it a little bit more.
Yeah, that's good.
Slow sippy. This one for me would be a day drink. I'd just stick a straw in the bottle. This one I'd pair with the food. It's more like the glass would take the duration of the meal. It's
exactly.
Sip, eat. It's nice. Right. It's nice feature. I get it. I understand it a little bit more now.
That's good.
Two brand new wines that I never have tried before, so I'm excited to know about them.
Yeah. So I also wanted to just say, because I told you that I was trying to do a Pinot because I love love like a wild mushroom plant-based risotto with like veggie stock, garlic, shallots, nutritional yeast, great with Pinot. And so I was trying to do that with this, and finally I'm like, every Pinot that I tried, it had this like bitterness to it. And a lot of that's from the kale, because kale is much better with a white wine. But also it's the tannin in the red wine. So tannins are from the grape skins and the seeds, and red wines ferment on that stuff, whereas white wine's pressed off. That's what the color's from. And so when you add that extra tannin, it makes, when you add the kale, it makes the wine taste bitter and kind of like flabby, and you're like, ugh. Like if I sent you a red wine with this, you'd be like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But like that risotto, you'd be like, oh, this is so good, Yeah,
and I think most people, or a lot of people when they go to a restaurant, don't really know what to pair. They just know what wine they like. It's like, if I didn't have any idea, I just am always going to order a cab because I grew up on cabs. I'm Italian. That's what we had. I know I like a cab, so I would just always order a cab, even if I was getting a kale salad, because I was health conscious. But it's so interesting because you can think back now to times where I'd be like, I love that cab, but I really didn't enjoy it the other night at that restaurant, and it was probably what I was ordering made it taste bad.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and so you have to think about, like, there is a place for like larger red wines and plant-based cooking, but like think about, and I always say, what grows together goes together. And so think about like Tuscany, and think about like a nice like tomato-based stew or dish over polenta with kale and white beans and tomatoes. A Sangiovese or Chianti has enough acid that would pair beautifully with that. And so there's a place for everything. But yeah, I think a lot of people try wines and they're like, oh, I don't like this. I'm like, well, because you're not like I said at the beginning, the wine should make the food taste better and the food should make the wine taste better.
All right, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Obviously, you haven't tasted it, but I'm just curious because I had one of the best slices of vegan pizza I've ever had in my life today.
Oh yeah.
From Pure Vita Pizzeria in West Hollywood, and it had it was a mushroom pesto, microgreens, and like a truffle oil.
Okay.
A gluten-free dough with cashew cream cheese, like cashew cheese, like a creamy cashew cheese. What direction would you even start to think with something like that?
So it can go kind of both ways how this is going. So for anything that's like, because I love doing like a cashew-based cheese or whatever, you're going to want to think about something richer like this. However, and the mushrooms go well with it, but the pesto is more leaning towards that Sancerre, but I bet it would also be delicious with that Gruner Veltliner that I talked to you about.
Yeah.
And also it would be really good with rosé of Pinot Noir bubbles.
Ooh, yeah. That pizza on the rooftop with a rosé with bubbles.
So good.
Yeah.
Quick question for me, Rachel. You sit in a restaurant and you're like looking to the left and right and people are doing this. They smell it.
Like what I'm doing?
But you know what you're talking about. Because I was eating, I started doing this because I think I'm programmed to do that. Does it actually do stuff?
Yeah, so basically when you're doing this, you're aerating the wine and you're getting air in there so that you can smell all the aromatics and it will open it up on the palate for you more as well.
Good to know.
There you go. There's a reason.
Oh yeah, that's why you'll see. And then you'll hear like Som's like slurping wine to like taste it. And basically what we're doing there is like testing for the structure of it and the alcohol content and all that kind of stuff to see, and the acidity. I mean, I go back to acidity is the number one, any wine with a lot of acid, and I taught you guys kind of how you can tell if it has acid. Right. It works well with food because it will not taste flabby. And if you ever have a wine, you're like, this tastes like nothing. It's because it's not going well with the food. So.
All right, good to know.
Yeah.
Well, I learned so much. I'm so excited that you joined us. Nick and I are going to put our mushroom and kale garlic dish over Hasselback potatoes that we have baking just to make it a little bit heartier as a dinner. And this recipe is in the cookbook. You guys can follow Rachel on Instagram at FitSomRachel, which is 2 M's.
That's right, for Sommelier.
Yes. Video anyway,
yeah, we'll post it on the video, and I can't wait for you to come out with your cookbook. So
I'm excited. It'll take a while, but I'm working on it.
All right, I'm excited for it.
Thanks for having me, you guys. Cheers.
Cheers.